Hey, has this ever happened to you? You're watching some anime, maybe something with heavy action like Jujutsu Kaisen. Some characters will be having a nice chat about something, and then we suddenly hard cut to some flowers. At first I thought, oh, we're just saving some work in animating characters talking, so here, look at some pretty flowers. But as I come across more and more flowers, I realized that there was something these flowers were trying to tell me. For a few weeks, I tried really hard to learn what those flowers meant. When you see roses, you instantly think of romance or love, but what about these daisies? What do you know about these hydrangeas? What the fuck is this flower supposed to be? The problem with this visual storytelling is that they show the viewer the flower and expect them to figure it out for themselves. And so I did. Daisies mean innocence or love. Hydrangeas can be a symbol of apology. This is a spider lily, which represents death. And after accruing just a small fraction of which flowers mean what, I came to a conclusion. I hate flower language. The reason is simple. It's just hard to identify drawn flowers, and sometimes they're just too vague to even hazard a guess. But a handful of flowers do stick with me. The wisteria in Demon Slayer is not only used to deter demons, but also as a symbol of long life and resilience. White lilies are often used to subtly signal to the viewer that these girls might be more than just friends. And then this one, anemones, stands for anticipation and fragility. Or in the case of Onimai, I'm Now Your Sister, it means that Mahito really needs to pee. Yeah, that's the context. In this scene, our protagonist, Mahito, an adult man who was turned into a middle school girl by his genius younger sister, is trying her best not to piss her pants. For 2.5 minutes, we're on the edge of our seats, waiting to see if Mahito will make it home in time to use the toilet to avoid peeing herself again. And to drive this sentiment further, the director decided that a quick cut of anemones would really heighten the anxiety of the viewer, to make you feel the gravity and the danger of the situation, that Mahito might indeed piss her pants. Yes, this is the beauty of flower language. When Victorian-era Europeans first popularized the use of flowers for subtle communication in a society where acknowledging sex was taboo, this is what they imagined the future would be like. Jokes aside, flowers have long held unspoken meanings across many eras and countries. The Japanese have developed their own code for flowers too. They call it Hanakotoba. But primarily, I want to emphasize that flower language can be used in place of explicit dialogue to express emotions. Like symbols or metaphors, the use of flower language allows for subtlety and also allows for more natural conversation between characters. Of course, people in reality aren't out there voicing their every thought and feeling that goes tumbling throughout their head. Instead, flower language can reveal a person's inner self without them fully exposing themselves. In episode 2, Japanese camellias are interjected after Mahito's first experience with their period. This flower represents perseverance and strength, perhaps offering Mahito a bit of encouragement as she struggles to deal with her cycle. In episode 7, Mahito learns to bake cookies and gives a small gift of them to Mihari. Before we see Mihari joyfully enjoying Mahito's cookies, there's a cut to these white dahlias in her room. These white dahlias in particular could showcase the gratitude shared between sisters. In Hanakotoba, dahlias also mean good taste, which I can't exactly find the source for what that means, but it may also just be a clever way of telling the audience that the cookies tasted good. And in the finale, crocus flowers appeared when Mahito resolved herself to remain a girl for a longer period of time. It's played off as still temporary, of course, but in the context of the final episode of the season, this decision is depicted with a sense of finality. Crocus flowers have the meaning of youthfulness and rebirth, underscoring Mahito's emphatic resolution. Even with all this context and all the extra dimension these flowers add to the story, I'm still stubbornly anti-flower language. In my other videos, I talk about how cinematography is used to engage with you subconsciously. The framing creates natural divisions in dialogue, the lighting establishes character dynamics, and the repetition of locations creates familiarity and thus connections. You didn't need these things to be explained to you. On some level, you already perceive them and weave them into your own comprehension of the narrative. But flower language is different. Sure, you know what a rose is, but flower language as a whole requires a specialized knowledge that is not always intuitive. So why dedicate so many shots to something most of your audience just won't understand? And here's where I really came to appreciate the use of flower language by Onimai. Sure, I could have picked a show that seamlessly integrates flowers into the show's story like The Apothecary Diaries earlier this year. But what I didn't appreciate about flower language and why I chose to discuss ONIMAI is its relationship with the LGBTQ+ community. In a similar manner to how people in the Victorian era relied on flowers to communicate their true feelings in a society that forbade it, queer communities have also relied on a variety of symbols and slang to reach one another in a safe manner. This level of secrecy is important not only to keep themselves safe in less accepting times, but to also make themselves seen. It's a bit paradoxical, but no one wants to hide who they are. Whether it's Oscar Wilde's infamous green carnations or Sappho's violets, flowers have historically given a voice to the queer community when they were forced to be voiceless. With this new tint, I strongly feel that flower language is a perfect fit for ONIMAI. While many of the commonly queer flowers, like lavenders or pansies, do not appear in ONIMAI, the specific flowers matter less to me. In moments where Mahito may feel insecure or shameful about her new gender, flower language comes in to clear the air. When Mahito gets a haircut, she clearly likes her new hairstyle but denies it when teased by Mihari. The show cuts to safflowers, which hold the meaning of attractiveness and happiness. Orange flowers can also represent cheerfulness and enthusiasm, feelings she isn't quite ready to express openly yet. Similarly, when Mahito feels embarrassment as her friends discuss periods, the show cuts to peonies, symbolizing bashfulness, to hide her from the viewer. This reflects both Mahito's own ignorance and the slight shame her friends feel in discussing such a private topic. In episode 9, during a shrine visit, Mahito's New Year wish is left unsaid. Instead, we cut to Adonis flowers, which symbolize determination and happiness. I can't help but attribute this flower choice to Mahito's lack of courage to voice her true desires, whether out of some lingering sense of masculinity and refusal to admit weakness, or because she isn't quite ready to vocalize her desire to stay as a female. So she wishes for either the courage to accept her gender or a general happiness that wasn't available to her until she underwent this transition. This sentiment is punctuated by an earlier scene in the episode where Mahito switches her camera to selfie mode and smiles upon seeing her reflection. She subconsciously wants this new gender, but at this point she isn't ready yet to say it. Flower language complements the queer themes in ONIMAI perfectly. They fill in those emotional gaps Mahito isn't quite able to fully express herself, whether it be due to safety, shame, or confusion. And while they provide some direction to the audience, the openness of interpretation creates what feels like a genuine safe space for Mahito to explore her identity. And of course, the show ends on a still image of Mahito and Mihari continuing their lives as sakura petals fall around them. Narratively, it's the start of a new school year and thus the time for sakura trees to bloom. On a meta level, the sakura petals evoke the classic concept of mono no aware, which describes the beautiful sadness of a transient thing. In this case, the show bids a farewell to the viewers who partook in this 12-episode experience. But for Mahito and her gender dysphoria, I'd like to credit those flowers as an acknowledgement of this special time in her life. She spent the past season exploring her identity and gauging her satisfaction with her new life. Despite my comments earlier about the crocus flowers, Mahito's final lines in the show suggest she may still revert back to identifying as a male in the future. In this moment, she has elected to keep her options open. And so this brief period in her life where her gender identity is nebulous continues for now. It'll come to an end one day, but until then, this picturesque shot of sakura petals blanketing the sisters conveys to the viewer the beauty and profoundness of this journey of self-discovery. After researching queer languages and ONIMAI, I've come around on flower language. I initially bemoaned how flower language wasn't very apparent to the normal person, but that's just my perception of what normal is. The world is filled with all kinds of languages, from spoken to visual, that I have absolutely no knowledge of. I'm not owed an explanation on how they all operate. Instead, I'm encouraged to invest the time and effort to learn. Look how much more there is to ONIMAI's use of flowers than just indicating where Mahito needs to pee. In ONIMAI, flowers say more than Mahito is capable of. They allow the audience to truly understand her, even when she feels unsafe letting the rest of the world know. It goes to show that there's a lot to learn if you just stop every once in a while to smell the roses. While I spent a lot of time trying to accurately identify each flower, I was beaten to the punch by Yu Kurema, who has a great blog post identifying each flower and its significance to the scene in an easy to follow format. Thanks to them for instilling some confidence in my flower identifications.